Hey everyone, it's Nella here. I moved some boxes today, so I found some of the stories I'd written um, during school. And since I've just made a video talking about Lorac and the strange developments that his character went through and the world that he's from, um, I decided to bring out the actual written copy of his story, or at least the first bit of his story, and do a video reading it out loud. So if any of you have wondered what my writing style kind of sounds like, because it hasn't really changed since then, this is what one of my stories sounds like. The Aftermath. The fiery sun settled into bed behind the mountain, setting the sky ablaze with red, pink, and orange light. The beautiful masterpiece above contrasted sharply with the sickening sight below. A boy waded through the muck and grime, a shovel slung over his left shoulder. His skin was covered with a thick layer of dirt, the yellow skin below tinted gray. He started to dig, his strange eyes flicking up to the glowing sun every so often. It was as if he and the landscape had been painted with the same colors. His coarse black hair hung in clumps around his oval face. Full lips, underneath an upturned nose, were pulled into a bitter frown. Narrow slits showed that his eyes couldn't decide whether to be reddish purple, like the flaming sky, or grayish brown, like the mud. Lorac, the baby of the workforce, slid into a line of tired men going to collect that week's paycheck. The men were like zombies, blending into the ocean of mud surrounding them. Their eyes were empty, soulless eyes of men who had seen all of their hopes and dreams crushed. "Ah, Lorac, if I could have a word with you," the middle-aged man said in a light tone. Lorac sat down in the hard wooden stool opposite his boss, who sat in an overstuffed chair, the brass buttons on the jacket strained to stay closed. "What did you want to see me for, sir?" Lorac tried not to spit the last word out. Some of the other workers have come to discuss your behavior with me. They have found some of your actions offensive, for lack of a better word. He tapped his sausage-like fingers worriedly. He saw that Lorac looked confused, and assumed that the boy had no idea what he was talking about. In fact, Lorac wondered which actions the others had complained about. Was it that he still got angry while most of the adults were numb to the world? "Lorac, some of the men have seen you give salutes after—" The boss seemed to struggle to find the right word. "Putting to rest the corpses." "What did they take offense to? Did I not salute properly, or was it my attitude?" Lorac demanded angrily, standing up. "Sit, sit," his boss said in a way that Lorac imagined a father would say to a misbehaving son. Lorac had never experienced this, because his father Ricards had been taken by soldiers one cold night in the early months of the war. "Now, Lorac, I suggest you stop it. The comfort of my workers is of paramount importance." Lorac stared at the large, balding man with a bushy mustache and sneered, "Is that so?" Lorac. The older man shook his head sadly. "You're almost 16, correct?" Lorac nodded. "So, 5 years old when war broke out. You have to put it behind you. The war's been over for 6 years. That's where you're wrong. The fight for the hearts and minds of my countrymen is still rages, and that's one battle Hanawa will never win." When Lorac's passionate speech was met with silence, he whispered dejectedly, "I've just lost my job, haven't I?" "No, you haven't. You've gone through a lot in your short life." He paused. "Report for work in 3 days." Lorac waded through the mud over to the old carriage. The driver, noticing that Lorac was staring at the horses, said, "The usual The usual ones won't work in these conditions. He gave a hoarse laugh and added, Wonder what that says about us. Lorac walked past blocks of destruction. The burnt-out shells of buildings and ruined houses spoke of the broken lives of the citizen of Tev Nogor. He reached his home, a simple brick house, windows of cracked glass, moss growing on the wooden roof. The front door swung open, and Lorac's mother hugged him close. I was so worried. I thought that maybe... She trailed off, but Lorac knew what she meant. Unexploded mines littered the fields of the countryside. She had hollow cheeks, a straight nose, small almond eyes, and fine, dark hair pulled into a loose bun. Her face was lined with light wrinkles. I guess you're not dead yet, said Lorac's half-sister. She had pitch-black eyes the same shape as Lorac's and an oval face. Her skin was pale and less gray than his. Her thick, coarse hair was pulled into a tight ponytail. So, Mother, have you told him the news? She spat out the word, still upset that she'd spent her childhood raising Lorac. Lorac, you've been chosen by the state to perform a great duty. His mother said in the same breathless way she always did when she spoke of the state. You are to marry a girl of Hanawa. Not just any girl, the daughter of General Malawaz, Gunhilda added in malicious delight. Why me? Hasn't the state ruined my life enough? He screamed. Lorac, you and your wife will be symbols of the glorious new future of our countries. I'm not doing it. I won't marry her. Like you have a choice, Gunhilda whispered. The state always gets its way. Just look what happened to Dad. 11-year-old Gunhilda had screamed and cried along with little 5-year-old Lorac when Ricards had been dragged into the night by those omens of death, uniformed soldiers, never to be seen from again. Days later in the city, Lorac was introduced to his fiancée. I'm so happy I finally get to meet you, Lorac. I'm Titania. The strange girl, talking rapidly in a high voice that possessed its own echo, was nothing like what he'd been expecting. She had enormous round Maya blue eyes, tiny button nose, and long periwinkle hair that cascaded down her narrow shoulders. She, in pastel robes, and Lorac, in a tailored navy blue suit, were an obvious mismatch. It was at that meeting that Lorac resolved to run away, to escape his fate. Lorac was stuffing the last of his things into his suitcase when the bedroom door swung open. Don't worry, I'm here to help, Gunhilda said. Mother has gone into the city. That leaves us with 6 hours to get you out of here. Lorac stood still. You are planning on escaping, aren't you? I don't need your help. The hell you don't. You don't even have a plan, do you? He said nothing. Look, let's get something straight. I would love to see you suffer. But that Titania isn't what I expected. She's so pure. There's no way I will let you be inflicted upon her. What's the plan? The escape was without incident, except for a run-in with an intimidating border guard. Thankfully, Gunhilda had prepared for it, and the guard had let them go. Lorac was glad that his hated half-sister was helping him, but he wondered what she and the guard had done during the 5 agonizing minutes of silence before she picked up the reins. Lorac, I'm only doing this to spare Titania the pain of having you as a husband. If I decide that this is causing her more grief, I will track you down. Got it? He stared into her deep black eyes and nodded. So, that's the story of Lorac. Bye, everyone.